welcome to this video. Today I'm going to show you how to make this wonderful, scrappy, organic, beautifully tactile fabric book made up with a whole heap of different scraps, pieces of fabric, some hems, easy to make and absolutely beautiful. They tell a story all on their own, and I absolutely love making them. So grab a pile of your favourite scraps, a pile of leftover fabric, and let's make a fabric book together. So to make the books, the first thing you're going to need is some fabric. I've got just a piece of painter's drop sheet that I had left over from another project that I thought I would use. Keep in mind that this piece of fabric is going to be folded like so that will be the actual shape of your book. You can have it any size. These ones are a little bit smaller than this one, and it's a little bit squarer. It is really what you've got lying around and what shape catches your eye. So I'm going to go with this shape here. It's a nice rectangle shape. And the next thing I've done then is just cut out, or ripped in this case, a few other pieces that are similar in size. Just a couple more pieces like so. They're almost the same size. I'm not after exact sizes. I just want something that looks beautiful and organic, and that's going to work perfectly. So as you can see, I've got 3 strips of fabric, which of course once folded over, we've got double sides for the pages themselves. So the next thing I want to do, I've laid out the 3 strips that will make up my book. I start to work on the layouts. Now, if you're looking for some layout ideas, check out a recent short that I made on how I put together little layouts that I can use either in my books or on bigger textile pieces. It's a wonderful way to use up scrap pieces, and it's also a wonderful way to tell different stories with different types of scraps. It's amazing the variety of pages you can make from simple scrap fabric. So I'm surrounded here, as you can see, to my left and my right, with some of the layouts that I had been exploring to use on my pages. I'll lay them out as one sheet, and of course knowing that they're going to be folded over. So I sort of keep in mind where the middle of my page, my fabric page will be, and I start exploring with different types of fabric to make different types of, fabric pages for the book itself. As I said, these are the ones I sort of picked out from my pile of fabric scraps, this pile here. I picked them out a little bit earlier, trying to sort of pick up my favourite pieces of scraps, seeing how they all sit together, seeing what type of story they tell together, and of course then having a look at where they will fit within the page. I might actually just give them a little crease so I can work out where they'll sit. So I'll go along with these 3 pieces, laying out some fabric scraps, designing, I guess, what pleases my eye, how the fabric scraps sit together, what type of, as I said, visual language or visual story I'm getting from this fabric scraps. And I will fill up both these 3 pages with the scraps, and then I'll show you what I do next. So I finished the first 3 pages of my fabric book. I ended up adding a few more bits of fabric down the bottom of the pages because my layouts were a little small and I wanted to fill up the entire piece of cloth underneath it, that piece of canvas strip that we've used for the pages. I'm liking how they look already. There's a lovely landscape feel to them, which I'm really enjoy looking at. So the next step I end up doing is I'll just tack all of these separate pieces of fabric down with some pins before I then sew them on to the back of these strips of cloth. It's a bit easier if I tack them down before I start sewing. It stops them moving around everywhere, and of course it helps me to position them so I know exactly where every small piece of fabric scrap is going to be sitting. So I've tacked all the small pieces of fabric down onto those strips of backing cloth, and now I'm ready to get the sewing machine out and sew them securely all together. Now at this stage you can do it all by hand. I just find that using the sewing machine is a little bit quicker, and I can get the job done, as I said, just a little bit quicker, but it's certainly an exercise you can do by hand. So I'm using the sewing machine to sew all around the edges of the pieces of scraps that I've tacked on to the original piece of canvas that I had that was making up the pages of my book. Now I simply go and sew around all of the edges in a pretty organic, loose way. I'm not after particular beautiful shapes, beautiful lines. I don't match it all up, you know, in any particular manner. Sometimes the lines of stitches will overlap onto other pieces of scraps from one to the next. All I'm after really is to secure all of the individual pieces together so nothing falls off when I am putting the book together. So there we have it. This side has been sewn down onto the backing piece of canvas. There's a few areas that I'll add some little hand stitches to, say for this area here, and maybe to hold this little guy down. I've deliberately made some shapes with the sewing machine there just for a little bit of visual interest, and I will then just move on to this side and the other two pieces in exactly the same way, sewing it all down and getting those little pieces of fabric scraps secure. I finished sewing all of the 3 pages of my book. All of the stitches have really secured those individual fabric pieces down, and I really like how they are sitting now that they've been sewn down onto that backing piece of canvas. It changes the look of the fabric scraps once you sew them down. I love how it all starts to sort of create a language between the pieces, a language between the pages. The colors are starting to talk to each other, and I'm starting to see how the pages will come together when I start constructing the book. Now at this stage, what I like to do is decide what I want as my front cover, what pages I want to have in the middle and at the end, how the pages will sit together. I like to play around at this stage. So for my 3 pieces, I really like this page here. I like the idea of it being my front page. The frill, I mean, to me, it pulls me in, and it sort of says to me that's the front cover of my book. It just looks like it's a front cover. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip him over like so, fold him in half, and you can of course see that front cover right there, which looks absolutely gorgeous. So then I think I might add this as my middle page and this as my end page. The idea is simply flip them over like so, one on top of each other, and then we'll have a little mock rehearsal of what it looks like together once they're sitting as pages. So I'm going to fold it over like so. I've got my front cover, and if I open it up, there's my first page, of course my opposite page here that has got nothing on it because it's the back of this piece, this page here, and then of course my middle page, and then I've got pages over the other side. Now if you're using different types of colours of fabric for your backing pages, you're going to get these beautiful marks showing through here, which is something really nice as well. So I have a look at it like this, and then I'll make some decisions about what I want to do with these blank pages here. Now, a lot of the time I leave them as is. I like the contrast between a really highly textured, coloured page sitting alongside a page that has just got some really lovely sewing lines on it. Of course, I've got to trim all these frays, but I'll get to that a little later. So sometimes I don't add anything onto this side of the page. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I think maybe it needs just a pop of colour, so I'll play around with some different types of fabric to sit alongside this one here, and then I'll sew it on. Of course, remembering that everything I sew on this page will show through on that page as well. So all the sewing lines or the hand stitches that I use on this page will show through here, which is, it creates another beautiful visual look on this page as well. Sometimes totally unexpected, which really enhances that page. And of course, if you're doing hand stitching too on this page, have a think about how your cotton, the colors of your cotton are going to sit on that page behind it too, which is something really interesting to play with. So at this stage, I'm not sure. I might add maybe just some lighter, a strip of lighter material, maybe a feature with a button on. I'm going to play around with that and make some decisions about what I want to add to that one. This one here, same goes with this too. This is really highly textured. It might need something on this side. It might need, say, a piece along here. So then the pages start to talk to each other. The colors are traveling through from one side to the other, or I leave it as is, as a beautiful sewing feature page. I know the middle page, I want to add some more scraps to. I don't want the middle page to be left blank. And of course, as I said, then the sewing marks will show through on the pages behind it. I really like this brown sitting against this page here, so I will do nothing to this page here. It sort of really has a conversation with this piece here, same tones or similar tones, which marries up really well when they sit side by side. And this one here, I might add some things on this side as well. And there's the back there. So that's the decisions you'll be making at this stage. What do my pages need now that they're sitting alongside an opposite page? Do I need to add some more scraps or even some trims? What colors do I want to, if I'm doing some hand sewing, what color cotton do I want to use that will show up on this side? Maybe complement it or even contrast it with different colors of cotton. These are the beautiful, this is what I love about these books. The individuality of making them your own means you get to play around with lots of different colors, lots of different trims, sewing lines that really create these beautiful, unique books. I ended up sewing on a few extra pieces of scrap material. As you can see, I'll just fold him over like that. I ended up adding another piece to the side here just to complement the orange or the rust color on this page, which I thought was really, it just adds another dimension to it, which I thought looked really well. I've added this lower piece of whitish material to the back of this piece. There was nothing on this piece. I just thought I needed to break up some of the stitching a little bit and give it a little visual play between this page and this page, which I think sits nice. And then of course, this is my middle spread now. I had nothing on these pages whatsoever. So I really love the way they look now. I ended up keeping this page totally blank, no more added pieces of fabric to it. I like the stitching on it. It complemented it nicely. And with this piece here, the only thing I did was add another little piece of length here. I noticed when I folded my book over like so, because this first page here has to go around a few other thicknesses with these pages, it was a little short. The length of it was a little short and it wasn't closing up as well as I liked. So I ended up, as I said, adding this piece here, gave it a bit more length, and of course made it easier then for it to fold around over itself with these other thicker pages in the middle of it. I love its frayed look. I love its scrappy look. I haven't trimmed off some of the overhang pieces of material. I've trimmed off a lot of the sewing threads, but I've kept it really loose with anything that started to fray. That's what I like about these books. There's such a beautiful organic flow to them, and I really like their loose look. So now that I've done all the sewing, I don't want to really add any more hand stitches to it. You might at this stage want to add buttons or beads or a few more frills. I'm happy with how my book looks at the moment. So now I'm going to get on with doing the binding here that binds all of the pages together. So now we're up to sewing our book all together. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You can either do some hand stitches or use the sewing machine. I know I don't want any frays or any frills down this side. I just want some plain sewing stitches. Some of my books, I do tassels on this side, but I've got such a lovely visual display of these frills on this side. I just want to do some simple sewing on this side to simply sew it all together. So the first thing I do, I'm going to have a look at the pages and make sure that they're all in line. I know that they're all slightly different, which I love, but I want them to marry up visually how they look the best, I guess. So that one I want to put a little bit over, a bit more, so when it folds up, I've got that beautiful frill overhang. And the easiest way I do this now to work out my sewing line, whether I'm going to do some hand stitches or use the sewing machine, I'll grab a ruler. I find this is easier than pinning it up because it always tends to move a little when I'm adding the pins to it, and this is a quicker and easier way. So I'll adjust the book slightly with my ruler in place, making sure now that I'm going to tuck that ruler up nice and tight there, so I know that's where I want my middle. This edge of the ruler will be the middle of my book. I'm going to hold it a little firmly as I open up, and that's pretty much my middle line. So I've grabbed some masking tape. It's this, just some masking tape. You can use sticky tape, whatever type of tape. It was a bit thick, so I ended up cutting a strip off and then cutting the strip in half. And then I'm just going to grab my strip and carefully, without knocking my ruler, is just pop the tape next to the ruler, as close as I can get without moving it. Not over the top of the ruler, but just along the edge, and move that. So now I've got this line here, I know as my sewing line. Now, as I said, you might want to hand stitch all the way along here. I'm going to grab the sewing machine and just do a simple line all the way along here to sew up my book right in the middle, and all the pages will then be nice and firm and snug in place. So there we go. You can see the stitch line all along here in the middle. It's nice and secure, nice and firm, and when I close it up, I've got this absolutely beautiful little fabric book. I fall in love with them as soon as I make them, even in the process of making. There's something so beautifully tactile about these books that I love so much. It goes beyond using up my scraps. Although they're perfect for it, they have so much beauty in them, and they, in my eyes, are a piece of art simply by being the beautiful little fabric books that they are. So I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and I hope you enjoy making fabric books just as much as I do.